So leverage is, how do I get more out of what I'm doing? Frankly, so I don't even have to do it, right? So like, how do I get more out of what I'm doing today so I can focus on the things that are actually revenue or commissions driving for me versus all this other stuff that I think I need to focus on. And, and by the way, David, everything I'm saying to people, I have made those mistakes.
I attest to this earlier in my career too, is I didn't dream big enough, right? The parameters weren't set big enough for me. And even though I might have thought they were big at that time, I could have gone bigger. So dream big in this. Don't limit yourself. Focus on things that, listen, set those big goals, because you'll be amazed once you put your mind to it and you set that intention for yourself every day, how it can happen. And here's the other thing I will tell you. It never happens the way you think it's going to happen.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.
All right, welcome back to Unfinished Business, everybody. And listen, today's guest is someone who's not only helped companies grow, but he really has redefined sales systems. Today, we're going to talk sales. And Doug Brown is the CEO of Sales Strategies, the creator of the Double Your Sales Method. We're going to talk about this method today. Listen, this guy's a true force in high-performance sales strategies. I mean, he has a great track record. He's helped companies grow for years and years, and really over 35 businesses, generating over $1 billion in revenue. He's worked with iconic brands such as Intuit, CBS, Procter Gamble, and even boosted close rates by 143% while collaborating. He does some collaboration also with Tony Robbins, Chet Holmes, great stuff. But more importantly, we're going to dive into his mind and his sales strategies today. And as you all know me, I love sales, baby. And this is going to be a great conversation. I also want to thank him for his service, 12 years in the military. And he's a great family man as well. So I'm excited to get into this. If you're looking to up your game today and learn more about sales strategies, running organizations that are high performance in sales, this is going to be the conversation you're going to want to listen to. So it's going to be impacted with insight, and excited to have our guest today. So Doug, welcome to Sales, Performance, and Unfinished Business, baby.
Well, David, thanks so much for having me here. I'm super grateful. And it's interesting because because my brother's name's David. So
there you go. There you go. All right, listen, I'm going to kick right into this one. You've worked and advised with some of the top performing sales teams in this country. What do you believe separates an elite sales professional from an average or even below average sales professional?
Leverage in their mind. So sales leverage, and their mind, really, when it comes down to it. And I can expand on either point, but
yes, expand a little bit. Leverage in the mind. Give me a little bit more on that.
Well, I'll take the first one. So the mind is one of these things that if we don't constantly expand it and challenge it on a regular basis, then our minds actually kind of do us in. So what I mean by that is, let's say that somebody is like, okay, I'm making multi six-figure income. I want to get to a high multi six-figure, or I want to make to a seven-figure income. We don't get there normally by the same amount of thought process that we have today. So we've got to be able to kind of expand that process and challenge that which maybe we were even taught growing up. So, and I had to learn this firsthand, David, because I grew up in an environment where it seemed kind of supportive, but it was always like, good is never going to be good enough, right? And so, in that environment, like if you got a B+ and you really studied your butt off trying to get that in school, it'd be like, why didn't you get an A? It was like, your brother's got an A. Why didn't you get an A? Right? It was that type of environment, and it was constant on everything. Like all my brothers and I were musicians, and I remember my mother, for example, saying to me, "You're never going to make it as a professional musician. Your grandmother was a concert pianist." And I'm like, that type of thing. But I was good. I was being asked for at that time for school plays, to be in productions. Music schools were courting me. I actually ended up at Berklee College of Music. So, mom.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Like,
Cool. Great school.
but the point being is that belief system, or our belief systems that we want to serve our caretakers growing up, will significantly affect if we don't challenge those thought processes.
Yeah.
It will significantly, and it will actually impede our growth. So if we grew up in a place, for example, like, that's just for rich people, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you start to be one of those rich people, and your family or environment was like, rich people are bad, let's say, then no matter what, it's going to challenge your current paradigm of thought. You've got to be able to challenge that, or you'll literally grow and then get to a point and go, oops, I'm beyond the crab bucket, so to speak. And I've got to come back to that template of love that I was served.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how many times, but it's been literally, I'd say over 1,000 plus times I've actually seen this in people. I did it myself. I used to, early on in my life, I would go up, and as soon as my income got up around $200,000, I'd start backing it down, because I grew up in a blue collar environment, and it was like the white collar people were yuppie, no good pieces of whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
So then I had my daughter, my oldest daughter, and I remember walking along and going, oh no, I keep backing my income down. Why am I doing this? And I want my daughter to have a better life than I ever had. And so there's the paradigm shift, right? It was like, who's going to win, the old scripting or your daughter, Doug? That was the question. And obviously she won, because I made that conscious decision walking up a hill, looking over a mountain. But the point being, that's part of the mind challenge, and it can be all kinds of things, right? So we got to constantly keep challenging that. The second thing is leverage.
Yeah.
Right? So leverage is, how do I get more out of what I'm doing? Frankly, so I don't even have to do it, right? So like, how do I get more out of what I'm doing today so I can focus on the things that are actually revenue or commissions driving for me, versus all this other stuff that I think I need to focus on? And, and by the way, David, everything I'm saying to people, I have made this mistake. So it's not like, for example, when I took over Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes, president of training and sales job, for example, I was an independent working with those guys. I worked with them for 7 years. And I used to think, because I was the top producing sales guy in the company at the time, that I always had to be involved in every single facet of every single thing. And what that was doing was, I was spending so much time in stuff that really wasn't all that important, but I perceived it to be important because I had to have my control hooks in it, if you will.
Yeah.
That I was limiting my ability for growth. And so, lots of people do these things. So then when I learned that, I'm like, oh, assistant can do that. Geez, right? And frankly, it was a she, did it way better than I could.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's all of these little points that just tether us down, number one. Or number two, how do I get strategic objectives out of everything I'm doing? So, for example, if I'm going to make a cold call to somebody in selling, because that's what we're focusing on, sales, that 5-letter word, is what do I want out of that sales call? Now, an average producer would say, I want a sale, right? A elite producer will say, I want a sale and a referral, and I want to build credibility, and I want an endorsement or a testimonial, and and they'll just keep going, all from that one effort. So I don't want to just make one sale. I want to make 3 to 5 sales out of that one effort.
Yeah. That's a great perspective.
those are two distinguishing characteristics. There are others, but the old "What's your why?" I mean, the people who really want it more than others, but those two are pretty important.
Yeah. And I want to back up here because I think, the first point you made is, and I attest to this earlier in my career too, is I didn't dream big enough, right? The parameters weren't set big enough for me. And even though I might have thought they were big at that time, I could have gone bigger. So dream big in this. Don't limit yourself. Focus on things that, listen, set those big goals, because you'll be amazed once you put your mind to it and you set that intention for yourself every day, how it can happen. And here's the other thing I will tell you. It never happens the way you think it's going to happen. Like there's these roads, right? Like as long as you're putting an intentional effort towards what you want to achieve, those roads are not straight. You are going to run into detours, things are going to happen. And then the second thing that you talked about really is, I love the scalability, right? I think that is such a great point. There's just easy little techniques that we can apply for ourselves to really scale up once we put in the hard work and set things in motion. So I think it's a great point.
Thank you. Yeah, and to your point, dreaming big in your intention. If we don't put our intention out there, then we're the best known celebrity in our own head, right, so to speak. Once we put the intention out there, there's a couple of things that happen. It's a super important point that you brought up. Is you now have to do something about the intention, because it's no longer an intention; it's actually an announcement, right? It's like, I'm going to date the prom queen. Well, you better do something now, because your buddies are going to be looking at you whether or not you actually are making efforts to date the prom queen, so to speak. And you brought up another good point, which it doesn't usually happen in the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
You may never get to date the prom queen, or you might, and you go, well, I'm sad I got get this date. This was terrible, right? But you met her sister, or you met a friend, or someone knew you were dating the prom queen, and she now is more attracted to you because you had the courage to actually do that, and confidence is sexy. And so she made her intentions known that she'd like to date with you, and that's the love of your life, right? I mean, there's so many things that can happen, not just in sales, but the universe will start to align things together. And that's one of the reasons why you never know how it's going to happen. I mean, if you told me I would be happy as can be marrying a woman who was born in Poland, and I ended up going to Poland, and if you told me that when I was, I don't know, 18 or even 30, I would have been like, what?
Yeah,
Like, who was the Poland? Like, what, like back then, and, I'm older. So, I'm 63. So back in 1962, when I was born in school, let's say I'm 10 years old in 1972, what did you think of Poland back then? You're like, isn't that country that was involved in the World War thing, right? Right? It doesn't so you don't really think about things like that. But I'm super happy and I'm super grateful I have her in my life. But it came about through circumstances like you're describing, that I had no understanding of how it was going to work.
Yeah.
But I did know I wanted a great relationship with someone, and I did put that out in the world.
Yeah.
So when we're doing this on a business level, all of us who own businesses or in sales or working in a company, understand it may not happen exactly how you think it's going to happen. May I tell a story?
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
And by the way, it's also going to take you usually longer than you figure, and it's usually going to cost you more money than you figure.
And that's true.
I want you to understand that. So I was always a Tony Robbins, Tony Robbins. I bought his, I was going through a bad relationship. Not that my relationships are all bad, folks, but, we all go through one. I was kind of going through a bad time in a relationship, and I was sitting watching television, and this guy with big white teeth and a real tall man came on. And he's like, you can have what you want in your life, just buy these $209 cassette tapes or whatever they were at the time, right? And I was like, I've spent money on stupider stuff than this, so let me give it a shot, right? And Tony said something on the first lesson. He said something like 94% of people will never finish this course. And I said, that's not me. I don't care what it takes. I'm finishing this course. And I did. And I ended up, remember, finishing it on a vacation that I never knew I was going to take. It was a bad time in my life. Just happened to be that the gal I was with, her brother had a condo in Maui. And he's like, you guys need a break from the world. Take my condo in Maui and just fly out there.
Take it.
Okay. Geez, get a condo in Maui, right? I'm sitting on the balcony watching a mama bird and a baby bird. She's got the wing over her head. And I'm finished the last personal power tape. And I took it with me on vacation because I'm like, there's no way I'm not finishing it. So Tony's teaching started opening my brain up to a lot of stuff. So anyways, I now went back and applied these teachings in my life, and my sales career started growing.
Yeah.
And I was like, now I know why it happened. But then I was like, this is cool stuff. Right. So I'm doing more of it, and I'm doing more of it. And I'm like, man, one day I want to meet Tony Robbins. I want to thank him for everything he's done, et cetera, et cetera. To your point, there was this company. I used to be in the telecommunications space. I then became the number one rep in this major company in telecommunications. And so I then got offers from other telecom companies, and I found a deal for another telecom company. It was called Excel, and Excel had gone out of business, come back into business. And I sold this deal for Excel, and I got commission on it, but it was a huge deal. And they called me and they said, why don't you come to our private gathering in the Biltmore Hotel in Arizona?
Used to live there.
You did? Okay.
We live in that area, right down the street from that place. But yes, go ahead.
Okay. It's a beautiful place,
place.
Right? It was wintertime. Why would I turn it? Firstly, going to the Biltmore, why would I turn it down? Especially in that, that. And then they said this, we're giving away a free Mercedes. I was like, done. You know what I mean? Like $200 ticket, I might win a Mercedes, drive it back home. I did not win the Mercedes. But anyways, there were only 100 of us. And I got there knowing nothing. The day I get there, and guess who the speakers are? Harvey McKay with Swim with the Sharks.
Oh, yeah.
And Tony Robbins. And so 100 people, Tony Robbins, right? He does these big events. Tony comes out. I'm like, I gotta meet this man. He comes out, does his shtick. We all have a good time. Thank you very much. Starts to walk off the stage. I go, it's Tony Robbins. I'm gonna go meet him. So I start to try to get up on the stage, and two bodyguards bigger than Tony Robbins go, no, dude, you can't do this. Tony goes off. That's it. I'm like, damn, I missed Tony Robbins. Right? I got to at least win the Mercedes now, right? So long story short, I'm talking to my friend on the or associate on a phone call, walking through the Biltmore. And I'm just walking along, and they're like, did you meet Tony? And I'm like, nah. They go, dude, I'm sorry. I'm like, nah, I was 10 feet from him. It was good. And I said, but someday I'll meet him. And I'm walking, David, and I look to the left, and in the courtyard, there's a big man sitting at a table talking to somebody, pouring a glass of water. And I look and I go, dang, that looks like Tony Robbins. And so long story short, I said to my friend, I think this is Tony Robbins. They go, bye. I hung up because they knew what I was going to do. Your intention. What do you really want? I walk in the courtyard. It's Tony Robbins. I walk up to him and I go, Mr. Robbins, hi, my name's Doug Brown. May I tell you a story? He goes, certainly. And I start to tell him my story about how in Hawaii and the whole bit and how my life changed. And he goes like this, David, Doug, why don't you sit down and have a seat? This is a friend that I had from high school. I didn't know he was here today. We just met in the courtyard and we're just having a conversation. I sat down with Tony, spent like 20 minutes there. We got talking. All of us got talking. And the weirdest thing, David, Tony is a big man, right? I'm not that big compared to Tony for sure. So we got joking and Tony was laughing and he slaps me in the shoulder. It was like a big club hitting me in the shoulder, right? Long story. And so, of course, I'm a guy, so I got to whack him back. When I did, my hand hurt. I can tell you that. And so, anyways, he says to me, Doug, why don't you come to one of my events as a guest? And I said, I'd be honored. He said, well, call my assistant. There's a sales component to this story, folks. Call my assistant and she'll set you up. He gave me the number. I said, thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. I left on cloud nine. I met my hero at the moment, right? And so I call the assistant. She's super nice, super wonderful. But remember, leverage, right? Super nice, super helpful. So what do I want out of this relationship? Not my ticket. I want a relationship with Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? I send this lady a huge bouquet of flowers. I think I spent like $120 or something back then. Today, that would be more like $300 or something on flowers. Right. And I send that to the assistant. I go to the event. I knew it might make a splash in the assistant's day, and it might get back to Tony Robbins, right? I knew that. So anyways, I'm at the live event. Tony's taking pictures with people. I'm standing out in the audience, and Tony looks out in the audience and he sees me. And he goes over the microphone. He goes, you, come here. I know what you did. And I'm like laughing internally. So I walk down and he goes, I know what you did. I know why you did it. I know what you did. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you really? And I said, you don't normally provide flowers to your assistant to thank her? That's how I started the relationship with Tony Robbins.
Oh, what a great story.
Okay.
Great. And then you worked with him for how long?
7 years.
Yeah. Great.
Right. And here's the rub, folks. From the sales perspective, I didn't make $50,000 a year, right? I made millions over that 7 years. And so you've got to have leverage. You've got to have intention. And you've got to act on that intention, to your point, David.
Yeah.
And you never know how it's going to manifest itself. And sometimes it's not meant to, but something else will open up.
Yes. Yeah. And you got to see that too. You got to see the opportunities and take them. What a great story. What a great story. I want to shift gears here and I want to talk about stepping into a struggling sales organization. What's one of your first diagnostic steps to uncover real issues? What do you do?
Well, I do what I call a sales optimization study. So I look at everything that's in the company that's going on. And that includes interviewing people within the company and looking at all of the processes from A to Z.
Okay.
Right? That's the first thing that I do. And the reason that I do that is there's a lot of low-hanging fruit.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So anytime you're going to be doing something like that and you're going to be taking money, you want to have short-term gains in the beginning. Right? It's like human dating. You go out on a date, you want to impress the person right out of the gate. And you want to keep their interest for the next date, and so on and so on and so on, right? So what I always look at is what is the low-hanging fruit in the company, and then we monetize it immediately. So I'll give you an example. Yeah. Normally, most people have neglected their client base that already bought from them. Mm-hmm. Right? They're called dormant clients. And anybody who's listening to this, just do this and send David the check for a percentage of the money that you're going to get out of this, because he was kind enough to have me on this podcast. And go back to your clients and just reach back out to them and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Like to know how you're doing, and re-engage them. Do not send them out a newsletter or a flyer saying new special, any of that stuff. Call them. Tell them that they mean something to you. Engage them in a personalized, meaningful, and communicative way that's relevant. Then you can tell them about anything after you've kind of broken that ice. Because if you do it right out of the gate, it's just going to be a veiled sales pitch, if you will.
Yes.
Right? Or at least construed that way. And you can tell them, hey, I'm calling to re-engage. Right? That's okay too. That's honest and truthful. And so do that. And all of the monies that come out of there, cut David a piece of the check. And that, so we look for low hanging fruit, and that's what you want to do when you're starting with a struggling company. They need cash usually, if that's the case. And if they're struggling in other ways, such as personnel's messed up, like one company I went into, this is crazy. They had an 82% annual turnover of their employee base.
Big number.
It's the highest I've ever seen it. Right? I was like, I actually had to do the numbers twice because I was like, there's no way.
Whoa.
Right. And guess what? Turned out to be one of their, the third best salesperson in the company, who absolutely was best friends with the owner of the company. Now there was like 130 people in this company, but that third best salesperson would go into customer service or operations or whatever. And I will not use the language that he was using, but it was just unacceptable all the way around.
Geez.
Right. And so much so that the sales team couldn't take it either, and they were going to quit.
Wow.
That's what my investigative process. So I went to the owner of the company and I said, you got a challenge here. This is one of the reasons your company's not growing, because your people don't want to be around this person. And he said, no, that's ridiculous. I said, you have an 82% turnover. Like, what do you need? 100? I mean, come on. Like, right? And so then he's like, well, he's my best friend. I said, do you know what the big challenge in your company is? He said, what? I said, you're your bottleneck at this point. Yeah. That's a tough thing to tell a CEO of like a $50 million company, right? At that moment.
Absolutely.
But sometimes we got to tell it. So long story short, I persuaded him to get rid of him. And here's the reason why. I said, 62% of your sales team is going to quit in the next six weeks. And he said, nah. All right, bye. He called me back 3 weeks later. My sales team's quitting. I'm like, dude, I told you, right? Yeah. So he let me fire him. And when I fired him, I'd have to look at the exact numbers, David, but it was like 7 out of 10 of the sales team came back.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Right. Wow. So once we were able to get rid of that problem, and now we work with the customer service department, the operations department, all of the departments to show them love again. And we put a full, get this, they weren't even training their sales team.
Yeah, there's a lot of those out there too.
The sales manager had checked out too, and they were friends with each other, the two problem.
Oh, geez.
So eventually I was displacing that person and displacing this person. Then we put a 4-day-a-week training program in, and they were like, are you crazy? You're going to train the sales team 4 days a week? I'm yeah. Here's the rub. They grew from, because they were at 50 when he first talked to me, they fell to 48 when the team left. So when I got there, it was 48 million. 2 years later, they were $110 million.
Great.
Right? So the reason I tell that story is because, folks, you got to kind of sometimes look at your own house and figure it out. If you've got a company and it's not growing, there's a reason for it. And so we want to track all the metrics and all the measurements. Those measurements will tell you a story. Pick off the easy ones first, because it gives you some confidence and some like, hey, that's cool, right? Reward people for helping, and then just keep building the plan off of that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my strategy is very similar. I wouldn't say similar, but in some concepts, I really categorize business, right? You have the DNA of your business, but you got in the sales arm, you got to look at two things. You got to look at the NBA, and this is not a basketball reference. You have but it kind of falls that way. NBA and CBA. Okay. Your NBA are your new business acquisitions. How is your company structured? I look at everything inside out on that. And then I look at the CBA, your current business acquisitions. What's a great client? What worked out really well? What didn't work out well? Why did you lose a client? And you're right. You can identify some very low-hanging fruit just by looking at those parameters. But when you start elevating your NBA and your CBA, your DNA gets stronger. And that's what it comes down to as an organization. So that's kind of my framework, which seems similar to yours. We just kind of chop it up a little bit differently. All right. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
I was going to say yours is a heck of a lot easier to understand than mine.
I want to switch here too. You talk about building scalability, sustainability, and sales systems. What are some non-negotiables for you when designing, a high performance sales team or even structure for that matter?
So some of the non-negotiables is after we set them up, measuring and accountability to the process, right? So if we, if we have our 3 S's as you just talked about, and we don't measure, look, people, the one thing that Chet and I and all company back when I worked with Chet, we used to talk about people respect what you inspect.
Yeah.
Right. And so I always inspected. And, I was in the military every day. We got up in the morning, did physical training and then inspection, right? They would come through every day and inspect us while we were, the troops, if you will. And so why do we do that? It keeps people sharp, right? It keeps people on their toes. You can't not, dress the way you're supposed to dress in the military and get away with it. It's just, that is an accountable process.
Yeah.
So, and then you hold people to what they say they're going to do within the system. Those are 2 non-negotiables, because the moment you don't hold accountability, especially to the top producers, because a lot of people they're the top producers, so we don't have to hold them accountable. Everyone's looking up, folks. They're looking up. So if Marla or Adam are the 2 top producers and you let them skate off because they're the top producers, everyone else goes, they got away with it. We can too. Here's the challenge. They're not there.
Totally.
Right. And so you've got to hold accountability to the whole process. I'm huge on measuring metrics
Yes.
and applying math to it. And so that's another non-negotiable, because the metrics will tell us a story, or at least alert us that there's a story there to dig in and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And
what metrics do you believe are the most telling about a sales team's, true performance? On that metrics.
Yeah. So how many outreaches are going on to clients or potential buyers, right? So if we're looking at, say, new sales, especially, how many outreaches? Out of those outreaches, how many connections are being made? So, we measure those 2 ratios. Why do we do that? We can tell what's more effective, right? Does our clientele base like text messaging, phone calls, email, carrier pigeon, snail mail, whatever, right? We can measure that, and then we can titrate that and say, okay, 62% want this, 32% want that. And who are they? And now you can communicate with them on their preferred dominant style of communication, right? When you do that, you'll get a higher response rate. So connection to response rate to positive response rates to negative response rates. If you got 100% response rate and they all tell you to go pound sand, you got right. There's a messaging issue, or a targeting issue, right. So response rates to appointment set, appointments set to appointments kept, appointments set to appointments not kept, right? Yeah. We can measure all this stuff, appointments to close rates. I mean, you could just do gross measurements like that, appointments to close rates. Yeah. We set 100 appointments. We closed 3. Whoops, what's going on?
Yes.
Right? Or we closed 97. Whoops, what's going on? Right? So we want to ask these questions: close rates to follow-up close rates to transactional value increase, close rates to buying frequency increase, close rates to referral ratios. All of these type of metrics can be measured. And so what we want to figure out is which ones are the right ones for your company. But in sales in general, those are the ones to measure. Like if you're a sales rep or a sales manager or a president of sales or whatever, you should be measuring these things. If you're the owner of the company, you want to see how your sales are going, those metrics I would measure. And of course there can be some other metrics as well. And so for the sales team, but remember, customer service should be part of your sales team. So you want to measure those for customer service. Operations should be part of your sales team. You want to measure those for operations, right? Because, what's the worst thing for a salesperson? Spend 6 months on an account, by the way, I had this done to me, Dave.
Yeah.
6 months on an account, huge accounts,
Okay.
submitted the orders, did all of the engineering sheets that I needed to do, spent all the time. And then operations, back then wasn't as electronic. Operations set 6 clients that I submitted on a printing fax machine, and someone knocked them over and pushed down behind the fax machine on the floor. And they sat there for 6 weeks.
Whoops.
These were brand name companies. and I'm like, why are we installing this? And they're like, what are you talking about? We don't have the order. And now I got the clients calling me and going, hey, I got to get that. And one of them canceled on me, and it cost me $26,000, almost $27,000 in commission.
Whoa.
And I'm like, what the, right? Now, okay, mistake happened. But what? Salesperson submitted an order. Time of input into the system. If we just had been measuring those ratios, we would have caught this. From time it's entered into the system, message to the salesperson, right? Just that ratio being measured, reply from the salesperson, right? Like, these measurements are really important, but people just don't do them.
Yeah.
And so, but
It's important.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, I'm going to go to the next question about training, because you brought up training earlier and it sparked it for me. But if you don't understand the KPIs, the key performance indicators, listen, there is no box that sales professionals fit in, right? We're all human. So if Sally is having a tough time setting appointments, but Steve is a really good closer, and you're working on things that aren't helping them, you're wasting your time in the training sector. Listen, we all can do group trainings and all that kind of stuff, but Sally's going to need more help with prospecting, where Steve's going to need more help with, prospecting, where Steve's might need more help with closing, whatever it might be. But if you don't really identify those metrics, you don't know where to put pressure. And I always say put pressure on areas that are going well and keep it going and duplicate it. And I say put pressure on areas that are not going well, because you want to break them or make them stronger, one of the two. But what role does sales training play in organizations' long-term growth? I mean, what really, though, to unpack that a little bit more, what really makes a training initiative actually stick? That's the key. What makes it stick and what makes it effective?
Okay. So to make it stick, it's one of my favorite subjects, so thanks for bringing it up.
Sure.
So to make it stick, it's not about a one-time training.
Yeah.
Okay. So folks, if you don't have training scheduled every week at the same time, with an agenda of the training that you're going to do for next week already published, and pre-work for your sales team, they're just going to show up and listen to you as a talking head. So you want to get them in the actual training. Think about a sport. I don't know why people don't think about this a lot, David, but they just don't. Like, if we were, I don't know, pick a sport, football, hockey, whatever, right?
Yeah.
The coach doesn't just sit in the locker room and talk to the guys or gals or mixed company and say, this is how you run this play. And that's all they do. They show it up on the board and then we're done, right? They will go hit the field. Let's practice this. But in sales training, they don't do that. They give the concept, and then they magically think it's going to absorb through the person's brain into their body and be owned. And here's the thing, guys and gals, according to German, philosopher or whatever he was, who studied, brain retention, Ibn Haas, whatever he was, back in like the 1800s, he concluded that human beings forget 50 to 80% of what they've learned within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's 80%, but it's high, right? So, and then after 24, it's even worse. And then 48. I mean, folks, what did you have last Tuesday for lunch? Probably not one of you can tell me that like that, right? Because we just pack it in our memory and gone. That's what happens with training, David. If it's not put into facilitation of in play. So we should have a pre warm up that puts them into play. Next week, we're going to talk about how to create yes states. Here's what a yes state is. I want you to research yes states. Come to the meeting prepared with questions, right?
When we're coming on, I like it.
Right? Whatever it is, right? And then, okay, hey, we're here. Congratulations. Let's talk about yes states. Here's the training. Bing, 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 bing. Okay, now let's talk about how to create yes states. People are wondering what's a yes state. Those how we can put our clients and potential buyers in a state of yes, continuous yes, right? Well, and then, put it up on the board and say, hey, participation in sales training. That's a critical component of it too. Hey, folks, give me your ideas. We're putting them on the board up here. Right. Well, geez, we should have a yes state start long before we talk to them in the sales channel. What does that mean, Ryan? I appreciate that. That means that marketing should be starting to create this with us on the front end. Great idea. Write it on the board. And you get all these great ideas. And then you're like, okay, what do we control within our unit? Oh, okay, great. Let's practice that. And we're going to take these ideas now and we're going to create a summary program. And we're going to say, Ryan, you got this one. Joni, you got this one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, this needs to be done within the next 48 hours. Be prepared to present this if I ask you to present this. And we're going to put it all together. And next week, we're going to train again on yes states. And that's what you do. You keep going and going and going till you get all of these little details down in your training.
That's great.
That's the proper way to train people.
Yeah.
And by the way, test them.
Yeah, test them and apply it. Really, like too. That's a big one. I teach this. I just go into some context. I'm no psychologist, but I have a learning pyramid that I've put together. It's listening and reading, and then listening and reading, and then discussing it. But you retain 50% of what you're learning if you demonstrate it. And this one, you'll retain 75% of your learning if you apply it.
Yeah.
Take a chance. It might be uncomfortable a little bit, but take a chance. Apply something, and I promise you that it might not go smooth the first time, but you will learn. Your learning growth pattern will accelerate when you actually can demonstrate it and then apply something. That's the key. And that's what the managers are for, is to make sure when you are applying it to correct you. But to go into this, helping sales leaders become better coaches, better managers, and not just, I always say, just to manage the performance, but rather becoming stronger coaches. How do you help sales leaders do that?
Well, sales leaders, so a manager, let's take a manager.
Yeah. Sales leader, manager, yes.
So a sales manager's job is just twofold. Grow the revenue of the people that you manage.
Yep.
Coach and train them. That's it. Really, well, but I got all these spreadsheets to fill out. Yeah. You're, by the way, yes, you probably have to do those routine things, but you're going to be judged on the volume of sales that are coming through the people that you manage. That's the judgment, right? I mean, so if we have 22 people on our team, how's our team performing? How are we coaching and leveling them up? How are we training them to get to the next level? That's our job as a manager, right? And, anything else is secondary to the primary job of a manager. So you focus, 80% of your time, if you want to use the Pareto principle, right? 80% of your time is focused on that. I'd say 95% of your time should be focused on that.
Yeah.
And again, leverage. Who can do those Excel spreadsheets for you if you don't like to? Think about it this way. If you grew your team's performance in the next 2 months by, a mere 10%, let's say we could get it there, right? and you got a bonus out of the commissions that are coming out of an extra, I'm just making all this up, $20,000 or whatever it is, right? You can't hire somebody for $6,000 a year to do that bloody report. I bet you can, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like we tend to focus on the things that and by the way, David, for most people that are in management, they don't understand this, and it's not their fault because the company doesn't direct them to do this.
Yeah.
Right. The crazy part, and I know you've seen this, they'll take a top producer, a top salesperson, and then they'll go, you should be the manager.
Yes. I've seen that a lot.
Right. That works out 1 out of 10 times. Right.
Yes.
Because there's two distinct personality profiles. A top producer loves to get out there and talk to people and make it happen and sell stuff and do that. And if you throw a pivot table at a top producer who's most of them aren't methodical, right? Their brain is going to start to sizzle, like, hey, put all these reports together. Even CRM systems, right? I mean, it's certain CRMs, they're not wired to do that type of stuff, but a manager loves that stuff. A good manager, right? Two different personality profiles. A manager loves to coach a team. A top producer loves to coach themselves and help the team, but they want to win themselves. A manager wants the whole team to rise up. A top producer wants to win the trip every single time.
Totally. Totally. So how does somebody identify? Listen, I know there's people out there who, or even organizations who feel like there might be somebody, or that person that's listening to this right now might feel like they're a good person for a leadership role. What are some of the questions that either the company should be asking themselves, or that professional who wants to move into a leadership role, or that company wants to promote somebody in leadership role? What are some of the most important questions they should be asking themselves right now about that person or about themselves?
So it's really about what is the actual role and what is the right profile of the person to fit that. I know that sounds basic, right? It's like, but the reality is that you can test against everything for these traits. So let's say they're looking for a leadership role, and I don't know, pick a role, and I can probably do this, like another manager or
VP of sales.
VP of sales. Okay, so what's a VP sales job? VP of sales job is to grow the revenue of the division, if they're or region of what they're managing.
Yep.
Right. So we've now got to look for someone who has the capacity to be able to build managers. Right. We now got to look for somebody who understands how to strategically think more about a business than just managing a department. They got to understand how to, they've got to have a certain personality profile, right? So we can measure all these things. But the first thing that I recommend that companies do is sit down to ad nauseum and write out the actual job description, but not from a perspective of how you're going to sell it. The actual job description. Somebody who's going to work 14 hours a day, someone who's going to give up their weekends, someone who's going to, be able to deal with our whoever, our CEO, who's a dominant personality. You want to write all of these things down. And because that's how you create the ad. No, don't. I mean, if you look at, like, I do this every once in a while. I'll go up on the job posting board and I'm like, and they're going, top producer wanted, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Top
I know exactly what you're saying.
Lucrative, lucrative bonuses and vacation package. Work from the comfort of your own home.
Oh, yeah.
We provide
work-life balance.
right? It's like, or top producer earns, $80,000. No, that's not maybe in their world, right?
Yeah.
But when you're looking for a VP of sales, what do you truly want them to have? What do they need to possess? Right? It could be like, and then write the ad around there. Like if the VP is going to get, punched down all the time by, vice president of sales wanted for dysfunctional company that needs overhaul. Right? So if that's the case, like the company that I was telling you about, that went from 48 to 110 million, vice president of training needed for a company who has an 82% turnover in their customer base, who was willing to fix that problem and blah, 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 and work long hours, arduous, probability success low, but you take on a challenge, right? You're going to attract better people that way.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Great point.
Oh,
This has been a great conversation. Last question before we go. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunities or challenges, whichever one you want to go with here, or both, for sales organizations over the next 3 to 5 years?
Okay, so over the next 3 to 5 years, AI is changing things, right?
Yeah.
So how do we learn to sell in that AI environment? That's going to be, I think, the number one challenge. Maybe not 5 years from now, but I certainly think over the next 1 to 3 years from many, many companies. And AI has nothing to be feared. That's the thing. A lot of people are fearing AI. Oh, it's going to take these jobs away. Yeah, it's going to. It's going to do it. So let's not worry about it. What can we control? What can we focus on? AI is not, I don't ever believe, and this is just my personal belief there, I don't think AI is ever going to replace a complex sale communication back and forth. It doesn't have the emotional IQ.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? But if you're a setter in a company, you better sharpen your skills, right? Because AI can do a lot of front end jobs that, anybody, I hope nobody sue us, but if you go to Sirius XM, Sirius, you should pay David a commission check of anybody who buys through this. Like if you go to Sirius right now and you call their customer service, they have an AI front end and they tell you it's an AI front end. I think her name's like Melanie or something like that.
Okay.
She's awesome. She's awesome. She tried to upsell me 3, 4, 5 times on our conversation, right? And she's awesome. And then finally I started testing it to see how quickly they'd transfer me to a live person.
Right.
And like that, right? They're doing a great job. It's a model thing to look after. So if you're like in a set role that's just a routine thing, or you're in a role that just can be frankly automated, and you're in sales, you want to start training for other parts of that process. Because if you don't, yes, you likely are going to experience that. Company owners should also be embracing this process because their competition will eventually do it. And so, if your payroll is $600,000 a year and your competition's payroll now is 3 cents a minute, and maybe a little monthly fee, then it's going to be harder to compete, especially if the AI world is actually equaling the same effectiveness as the human world.
Yeah. So
that would be the thing that I'd start looking at. And how do you automate workflows, and how do you do all of this stuff that's already here, but it's going to take a little while to embrace. And if anybody thinks I'm crazy, back when dial-up internet came in, I remember when DSL came in, David? And I went to people. I was working at a major corporation at that point, and I'm like, we got DSL, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to change sales forever. And people said, you're crazy. I'm like, no, think about it. People are now going to be able to get the information that they rely upon us for the expertise. So it's going to change the whole information transfer. They're going to know more about us than we know about them. At that time, they're like, you're nuts. Well, today it's there, right?
Yeah.
So AI will do the same type of thing, but it's not to be feared. Just embrace it. It's I'm sure somebody one time said, learn how to repair this steamship and you'll have generations of family legacy repairing steamships. Nope. Right?
So true, man. So true. Listen, Doug, this has been a great conversation. I want to thank you for being on the show. A lot of insights today, a lot of nuggets. Listen back to the show. There's some great stuff coming out of this. And if you're a sales professional or if you're a sales organization and you need some help, Doug, where can people get a hold of you?
They can easily just email me if they want at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. They can hit me up on LinkedIn at Doug Brown 123. Can I plug a masterclass we're doing?
Please plug it.
CEO Sales Strategies /Stop the Leak. We are doing a masterclass, which is super fun, on one thing you can do to increase your sales between 5 and 20% in the next 12 months. And it is just one super thing, one super thing that you can do, and it's not hard to implement. So come to the masterclass; it's free, and I'll reveal everything there.
Awesome, man. Listen, I want to thank you again for being on the show. This has been a lot of fun. And everybody out there, thanks for listening. Share this show, like this show, just push it out to one person for us. We appreciate all the support. Wealth, health, success to all of you. And go out there and get a win today. And we will see you next time. Thanks again, Doug.
You're welcome, David. Thanks for having me.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.